Nigeria receives nearly 4 million vaccines from Covax, the third and largest delivery to be made by the global Covax initiative. Freed schoolgirls in Nigeria recount kidnap ordeal. And the UN to relocate thousands of Central African refugees to safer locations. Hello and thank you for joining us on Africa Live. I am Peninah Karibe, and with me in studio with the business headlines is Rama.
Thank you very much, Peninah. Here's what's coming up in business news. There's alarm as global carbon emissions start to rise again as economic activity resumes. And industrial metal prices are rising to multi-year highs once again. But what's driving them to those levels? We'll explore that in the course of the hour. For now, let's start with the latest in current affairs with Peninah.
Thank you, Rama. We begin the hour in northeast Nigeria, where 25 aid workers have reportedly been trapped following an attack on a United Nations base and a humanitarian hub. The incident happened in Dikwa town in the restive Borno state. Scores of militant fighters invaded the military base and torched the hub. So far, no casualties or injuries have been reported. Security reinforcement have been sent to the area to repel the attackers. A military source said the attackers were from Islamic State West Africa province. ISWAP is a splinter of jihadist group Boko Haram. Over the last decade, Nigeria's military has been battling a Boko Haram insurgency that has left at least 36,000 people dead and millions displaced. Still in Nigeria, freed schoolgirls in Zamfara state will soon be reunited with their families. According to state authorities, all 279 students kidnapped from a boarding school in the northwest are no longer being held captive. Police earlier reported that 317 girls were kidnapped. Authorities later said the true number was 279. The students were taken away by suspected bandits in a raid on government girls' secondary school in the remote Jangebe village on Friday. For the latest, let's go live now to our correspondent Phil Haza joining us from Abuja. Phil, tell us more about the release of these schoolgirls.
Well, thank you indeed. It's a very, very great day for many of the parents and guardians of these schoolgirls in Zamfara State. Of course, it's also a good day for quite a number of security operatives, the government officials, and the world at large, because anytime we hear of kidnap of school children, it flashes back to other events from Chibok, Dapchi, and a host of others. But it's been 4 days, and these girls have been finally released. Many of them have gone through medical checks to know the state of their health. But so far, the governor says that they're doing well, and they're going to also go through some form of psychological assessment as well, because the harrowing experiences they must have gone through in these 4 days. I mean, it will take a while to get all of that taken out of their minds. Now, many of the parents have also been excited. They've been happy to be reunited with their children. The government has also stated that more security operatives and activities will continue in the state to forestall further attacks and also fish out the criminals of these kinds of attacks. The president has also declared Zamfara as a no-fly zone for indefinitely. He has deployed more security operatives from the police to the military to try to fish out these criminals, because security operatives say until these criminals are named and shamed, we might continue to see further attacks, further kidnaps of school children. For now, also Zamfara has closed down all boarding facilities, all schools, until they're able to properly secure these schools and of course other soft targets.
All right, Phil, we appreciate that update. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's now bring in Tolu Akarele, counter-terrorism, cybersecurity and data protection consultant, joining us live from London. Tolu, thank you very much for joining us. Let's just begin with the latest news we're getting out of Nigeria about those 25 aid workers that have been reportedly trapped following an attack on a UN base over there. What do you make of that?
Yes, hi. Now, this is unsurprising because we've seen a frequent targeting of aid workers from ISWAP over the past few years. This is part of the West African Hearts and Minds campaign for jihadists through targeted killing against the kuffar. So ISWAP has frequently been conducting such killings against aid workers in a bid to warn people from aligning with the West, from any kind of association with foreign sources. So what we saw yesterday night and this morning in Dikwa was a targeted attack. Two separate ISWAP squads targeted the town, and this is a very vital hub, a humanitarian hub, and it's a garrison town, so this is important. So two separate squads, one attacked the military and engaged them as a distraction, while the other squad raided the town. So what we saw here was 25 aid workers were huddled in a bunker, and we've seen two other NGO compounds and housing offices and guest houses were set on fire with 4 vehicles captured. So contact was lost with the hub containing the aid workers around midnight, and we've heard from certain sources that there's been an abduction of several dozen humanitarian workers, but this has not been confirmed yet by ISWAP.
But then we also have, Tolu, this other frightening prospect of schools being raided, kids being taken away, boarding schools. I mean, what is it that's making these schools such a prime target? Why are they being targeted?
Well, unfortunately, in northern Nigeria, it's easier to get an AK-47 than secure and safe education. So what we're seeing is, whether it's Boko Haram, whether it's ISWAP, we're seeing mass kidnappings. Maybe they're using bandits to facilitate these kidnappings because they're getting money for ransom. So there's nothing more innocent than a child. Children's lives are very innocent. So the assumption is you'll get a prompter response from government. We still believe that Boko Haram is still living off the €3 million sum allegedly paid for the kidnapping of 106 Chibok girls that were released later on. Of course, there are still some in the wind, but we believe that this large sum of €3 million, has still sustained the groups in their operational activity. Now, we've also heard that there was rumors of 800 million naira being paid for the Kankara students' abduction recently. So we see that there's an MO, there's a reason for these organizations to kidnap and abduct children, because not only is security slightly more lax around schools and boarding schools in the north, it's also proving to be a very, very, very convenient and vital fundraising tool for terrorist organizations. Now, to put this in perspective, the Zamfara state governor last year had promised bandits 2 cows for every AK-47 gun that was surrendered. Now, the question is, where are they getting this kind of artillery? Where are these weapons coming from? So if bandits can have AK-47s, and of course, we're not surprised that terrorist organizations are using their weapons, using their connections with organized criminal groups to conduct mass school abductions, and then, of course, request money for ransom.
And that's another thing, Tolu, that piques my attention when you talk about the 2 cows for every AK-47 that they hold and where they're getting that from. So it seems to suggest all of this, the scenario you've painted seems to suggest that security in the northern part of Nigeria has collapsed. Is this the case?
I would say this has been an ongoing trend for the past decade. We've seen a rise in insurgency from Boko Haram to splinter group Ansaru, who was aligned with Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb. We've seen another splinter group in the form of ISWAP, when after Boko Haram pledged allegiance to ISIS, and that collaboration went a bit haywire. We saw ISWAP became a third splinter group from Boko Haram. So we've seen an increase in actors in northern Nigeria and the Lake Chad Basin and her borders. We've also seen a collapse, it's been a rather continuous collapse of intelligence sharing within Nigeria. So this is a crucial problem in Nigeria. We have many intelligence agencies, and they don't necessarily share their intel, share what information they have with each other. So in terms of a coordinated response against insurgency, we see there's a bit of miscommunication there, and there's a large gap that needs to be filled. Now, of course, President Buhari has replaced many army chiefs and military chiefs, We've seen huge, massive gains in northern Nigeria, particularly in the crucial area of the Timbuktu Triangle. So as we've seen some advancements, we've seen a lot of pushback from the terrorists. So we have issues here. And of course, when you look at mass abductions of children, you can then look at the output in terrorism in the case that there will be more recruits, more forcible conscription, and they're indoctrinating children to fight on the front lines. And then of course, when military engage, there's an ethical and moral question of, do you shoot a 9-year-old child that is there on the front line against their will? So there are a lot of issues in the fray, but I wouldn't say the security situation in northern Nigeria has necessarily become massively more insecure than it has been in the past few years. We're seeing an increase in rampant attacks, but of course we have to look at the context of the coronavirus pandemic. A lot of governments have been focusing on healthcare, and perhaps they've dropped the ball on security, and there have been a lot of issues going on in the past 12 to 18 months. So I think we've seen an increase in insurgent activity, and we're hoping now with the new Chief of Army Staff in Nigeria, we're hoping for more foreign support, increased collaboration with the British Air Force and the Nigerian Air Force, things like that we're hoping will push back. But as I mentioned, with the double attack from ISWAP in the Dikwa town, we've seen that this was specific to distracting the military whilst raiding the town. So they're becoming a lot stronger in their coordinated responses to pushback from the army and the military.
All right, Tolu, we appreciate those insights. Thank you very much for talking to us tonight, Tolu AfricaLive in London. And this is Africa Live. Let's take a short break. Coming up. The UN to relocate thousands of Central African refugees to safer locations. And in Uganda, tree vendors join conservation drive to expand forest cover.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis, Cairo,
Juba,
Johannesburg,
Ethiopia, Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines.
You've got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca, among the crowds in Cairo,
Who come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
along the waters of the Nile, along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
No one again, he can hold in guns.
Machine guns from police forces toward the protesters.
Were you worried about your life at that particular time?
Not at all.
What is your assessment of the state of the continent today?
Africa has the potential to power itself.
Excuse me.
Nigeria has received nearly 4 million doses of the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. Africa's most populous country is finally set to begin its vaccination program. Our correspondent Willie Haza in Abuja tells us more.
Months of anticipation finally over. About 3.9 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine emerged from this plane at the international airport in Abuja this morning. It's a huge moment for the country and a huge relief to government officials.
So we're very excited today to get our first vaccines. We know that our work lies ahead of us in getting these vaccines into the hands of Nigerians, but as we have always demonstrated, we're always happy to do this work and make sure we get Nigerians vaccinated, which is actually the goal.
The vaccines are provided under the World Health Organization-backed Covax facility. The aim of the program is to distribute vaccines equitably for developing countries regardless of income. Nigeria is the third country in West Africa after Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire to benefit from the Covax program. These doses arrive from India under the supervision of the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF.
It's critical that Nigeria receives this vaccine as early as possible because Nigeria is a big country. It's going to take a long time to get to the 70% vaccinated in this country. The earlier that Nigeria starts, the earlier that Africa will be able to achieve the levels of immunity that are required.
According to the government, storage facilities have been built in several parts of the country, and health workers as well as other frontline responders will be given the vaccines first.
This is a historic moment for Nigeria as the country joins the list of other African nations to receive its COVID vaccines. It's part of the 14 million jabs the country is expecting before the end of the first quarter.
This batch of vaccines is an important step in the fight against coronavirus. But there's a huge amount of work to do to hit ambitious government targets of Nigeria vaccinating 40% of its population this year and 30% more in 2022. Phil Ihaza, CGTN, Abuja.
So what is Covax and how does it impact in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic? CGTN's Robert Nagila tells us more.
The COVID-19 vaccine's global access is abbreviated as Covax. It's a global initiative that seeks an equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines for poorer nations in the world. This initiative is co-led by the Gavi Vaccine Alliance, the World Health Organization, and the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations, or CEPI. Many other agencies also form the backbone of Covax. Covax was formed as fears of vaccine nationalism threaten to derail immunization of global populations, which is one of the proposed ways of combating the threat of COVID-19. Low and middle-income countries are eligible for assistance from the Covax initiative. According to the World Health Organization, all 54 African nations have expressed interest in Covax. Covax is seeking to immunize at least 20% of the African population this year. Ghana was the first nation to receive a share of Covax vaccines, followed by Cote d'Ivoire. The two nations have already rolled out their vaccination campaigns. While Covax has been distributing mostly AstraZeneca doses to targeted nations, countries are also using other vaccines. They include Russia's Sputnik V, Pfizer's vaccine, and Johnson & Johnson's one-shot vaccine. However, China's Sinopharm vaccine is one of the vaccines that has been driving vaccination campaigns on the continent. Countries such as Zimbabwe, Equatorial Guinea, and Sierra Leone began their respective inoculation drives with the Sinopharm vaccine. The Chinese government has been donating the drugs with the promise of scaling up this exercise. As of the beginning of March, over 113 million cases of coronavirus have been confirmed globally in 223 nations. The disease has killed 2.5 million people so far. Robert Nagila, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa has thanked China for donating the second batch of COVID-19 vaccine. The Southern African nation received a batch of 200,000 Sinopharm vaccines from China and has since rolled out its vaccination campaign. Addressing the nation on Zimbabwean national television Monday afternoon, Mnangagwa said the generous gift will greatly contribute to Zimbabwe's quest to achieve herd immunity.
On behalf of the government and the people of Zimbabwe, I once again express my profound gratitude to the President of the People's Republic of China, His Excellency Xi Jinping, and the government and people of China for the additional donation of 200,000 doses of vaccines made to Zimbabwe just last week. This generous gift will greatly contribute to our quest to achieve herd immunity. Over and above the combined total of 400,000 donated doses, another 600,000 doses of Chinese vaccine will be arriving in the coming weeks. A further 1.2 million doses have also been availed by Chinese companies for Zimbabwe.
Meanwhile, Zimbabwe's national vaccination program rollout is going on smoothly. This is despite earlier rumors on the safety of the Chinese vaccine. Local frontline workers, including health specialists and journalists, have been targeted. Some of those who have been inoculated have been speaking on their experiences.
There was a whole lot of information that was rippling through on social media in relation to the Chinese vaccine. And one that reigned supreme was that the Chinese vaccine is not quite effective when compared to other viruses. And another stereotype that was being pushed on social media was that once you receive the Chinese vaccine, definitely it will come in with quite a number of side effects. But from what I have experienced and from what I have seen from my fellow colleagues who have undergone the same vaccination process, there are no side effects that have been recorded as yet.
Well, personally, I have no problem with Chinese vaccines. We have a lot of medication that is coming out of China. A lot of technology is coming out of China. So even if you look at a number of IT products, China is becoming a leading economy in terms of leading on technology and leading in terms of research on vaccinations and health in general. So I'm confident that this is the way to go.
Right, in the car, I was very hesitating. Why? Because social media is spreading the rumors that if you're going to get vaccinated, you're going to get a lot of diseases, and it's very painful to be injected. So I was very angry. So when I got there to see people being vaccinated, I was so excited to see. Then I said I need to do it myself before it's too late. Yes, I trust Chinese vaccine because I've seen a lot of ministers, big people, doctors, nurses, police officers, assistant commissioners, they were being vaccinated. So I have no time to get hesitate. Yeah.
We now turn our focus to the Central African Republic, and more than 92,000 refugees from the country have arrived in the neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo. However, their living conditions are not so good. Here's more on that.
For these refugees, escaping renewed violence that is threatening to engulf their country once again was all they had on their minds. But even in their safety in this temporary camp, life is far from good.
Our living conditions are tough. Finding food is a challenge. We couldn't go back to our homes because every night and day there was gunfire. It is not possible to go back there. We can't go back. We will endure it here until God touches someone's heart to help us.
Most of them are living in makeshift shelters, while others are sleeping rough. A few are being hosted by local communities. This temporary camp that sits on the border with the Democratic Republic of Congo has no access to drinking water, sanitation or food. Local UNHCR staff have done the little they can as they continue registering more arrivals.
We first thought of offering some assistance. We have just issued them with blankets to cover themselves in the cold nights in terms of non-food items.
Years of political instability has seen nearly a third of the Central African Republic's 4.7 million people displaced. A new wave of violence has broken out between the UN-backed government forces and armed groups linked to opposition leaders. This followed an election in December last year that unraveled. Wabot Nakila, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
Now let's take you back to that story of these schoolgirls abducted in Nigeria. And some of those girls have been speaking out about their experiences. Here's Susan Mungeli with more.
Seated amongst her colleagues, Farida Lawali is happy to be free. But the ordeal she and her schoolmates went through in the hands of their kidnappers lingers.
While we were trekking, they were hitting us with guns and at the same time beating us with canes and commanding us to move on. They took us to an unknown location. It was there after 4 p.m. prayers that we were given food to eat.
She's part of the 279 girls caught up in the latest kidnapping incident to hit Zamfara state in Nigeria. Authorities say reformed bandits helped negotiate the children's release.
We thank God that we have the repentant ones, and those repentant ones are working for us, and they are working for the government, they are working for the security. So we're going to continue with that process, because not all of them that are bad, like the one that we use to secure the release of these children, they are all repentant bandits, because nobody can be able to reach them. They know them, they know where to see them. And when we finished this process yesterday in the morning, they contacted me and said we should provide vehicles to go and bring these children.
For the girls' parents, it's a good end to a horrific nightmare, and the relief is evident.
Alhamdulillah. I am very happy indeed. God has made this ordeal that we found ourselves in to come to an end. We are happy. We thank God for everything.
Nigeria's president has welcomed the release of the young girls. However, he warns communities against paying ransom to kidnappers. Northwest and central Nigeria are in the grip of kidnappings from gangs that are locally known as bandits. They kidnap locals and demand ransoms from families. Lately, schools have become targets for mass kidnappings in a trend started by Boko Haram and its splinter group, SWAP, in northern Nigeria.
Decades of crop farming and deforestation in Uganda have adversely affected the country's indigenous gorilla population. The Ugandan government has encouraged people to grow more trees to increase the country's forest cover. Some are already playing their part in this effort, including one roadside tree vendor who hopes to get more Ugandans to plant their own trees. Leon Senyange reports.
Growing up in this area, John Bosco Bukenya has seen how deforestation has taken its toll on the environment near him. The natural forests in Mpigi, where he lives in the central part of Uganda, have been significantly depleted over the years. The trees are cut for firewood and timber that's used as construction material.
We all know the solution to that. It's tree planting, but not many are committed to it because they will still need trees all the time.
Bukenya is increasingly concerned about the environment. By his roadside tree nursery, he grows and sells tree saplings. He's been doing this for 10 years now.
Everybody that passes here can get a tree. Whoever wants a mango tree, a flower, any other tree, they all can get it easily.
It's a source of income too. There are close to 1 million tree seedlings of different types here. While it's the fruit trees that are preferred the most, Bukenya says it's the eucalyptus trees that make the better sales. Bukenya has also started advocating for tree planting in this area. The local people are keen to take up the cause as well.
Many people buy the trees. The trees are taken to places like Kalungu, Bukoma and Simbi. And with that, we can slowly get back to our forests.
Bukenya is one of many roadside tree vendors in Uganda. Conservationists say tree vendors have helped Ugandans access trees themselves and participate in planting, but that more needs to be done.
We're all part of the environment, and we need the forests for the air, the environment should be one of our most top priorities, because if we mess up the environment, we're messing up ourselves.
According to the National Forestry Authority, Uganda's forest cover has improved from about 9% in 2015 to over 12% now. This is because of government and private reforestation campaigns. And Bukenya hopes that his contribution will help the country gain at least some of its full forest cover, one tree at a time. Leon Sanyange, CGTN, Mpigi, Central Uganda.
You're watching Africa Live. Time now to catch up with the day's business news. For that, let's cross over to Rama.
Thank you very much, Peninah. Here's what's coming up in business. There's a fair bit of alarm as global carbon emissions rise again with the resumption of economic activity. And metal prices are heading up yet again as industries get back to business.
This has taken me completely out of my depth, but at the same time it's exciting. It's new, it's different, it's a challenge.
It's really exciting.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Global carbon dioxide emissions are on course to rise even further in 2021. According to the International Energy Agency, greenhouse gas emissions dropped by about 5.8% overall in 2020 as the COVID-19 pandemic retarded economic activity, but a rebound was seen towards the end of the year. Major economies led that rebound in December when emissions were around 2%. That's roughly 60 million tons of CO2 higher than in December 2019. The IEA Executive Director, Fatih Birol, says that the rebound in global carbon emissions is a stark warning that not enough is being done to accelerate the transition to using much more clean energy sources. Now, on the commodities side, from platinum to copper to nickel, prices of industrial metals are hitting multi-year highs in the first quarter of the year. Copper, for example, did rise to over $9,400 a ton in London. That's a 9.5-year high. Prices are rising because of projections that a broad economic recovery from the pandemic and a worldwide push for cleaner, greener energy will unleash some pent-up demand. Angela Coppola takes up the story.
Copper and nickel are two industrial metals to watch in this push.
There's a lot of talk at the moment about green metals. So, as the world electrifies and as we decarbonize, things like copper and nickel are going to be needed increasingly. So it looks like demand for those metals should increase over time. But I think what we need to keep in mind and just be cautious of is those metals are still very linked to GDP growth. And so it really depends on how the growth story for China and the world evolves over time.
There's a growing bullishness that has even sparked talk about a new commodity supercycle.
So we got $12 trillion of stimulus spending. That money is going just to create jobs, just to keep the economies going over. And that is leading to demand in all these commodities.
Some are suggesting that the world is in a commodity supercycle with price leaps being sustained.
And these leaps are holding on. These prices now have been going like this for over a year. And even in the 70s, they'd go out last few months, come down and go up again. But this time, that's why I say we are in a super cycle now, because they're just staying at these levels. And when they pull back, it's minuscule pullbacks, and it's for days. It's not even for weeks or months to correct.
Not everyone thinks the super cycle is sustainable for all commodities. especially for any new production coming online.
For some commodities, you have quite long lead times, and so you have situations where supply is unlikely to come into the market for a decent amount of time. For example, in platinum or PGMs, it takes roughly 7+ years for a new project to actually come into the market and start delivering production from when the project's announced. So there we would think there's more of a chance or a higher probability of these prices being sustained for a longer period of time.
It's estimated that the platinum mines are contributing 2/3 of the revenue that the country generates from mining alone, and it couldn't have come at a better time. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Now, Nigeria's leather industry is estimated to be currently worth about $500 million. But it has set the rather ambitious goal of boosting revenues by $1 billion, and that's in order to tap into increased international and domestic demand for fine leather products. As CGTN's Tessa McKenna reports, however, some key players argue that the sector still has many challenges to contend with.
These African designs are just a few among Shuaibu Abdullahi's many works. He's been producing leather works like wallets, bags and face caps for more than 40 years, and he says the business is lucrative.
The leather business has been very profitable to me, my family and members of my community. We're all successful producers using leather.
He also says he has trained over 6,000 people in leather work in his community.
This community has become a household name in Jos because of their expertise in leather making. They say it's the best way for young people in the village to become self-reliant.
Nigeria's National Bureau of Statistics says the nation's leather industry is worth over $500 million. It's an industry that could continue to grow if demand keeps up. However, producers like Abdullahi say they lack modern equipment to increase their productivity, which is why they want the government to step in.
We can deliver much better leather works with support from the government to acquire better machines.
Experts say Nigeria needs to diversify its economy away from oil, and offering more support to the leather industry is one way to do that.
They need to be encouraged, they need to be packaged, and government needs to help them with marketing. Once there's significant input in terms of export, it's going to diversify automatically, and it's going to enrich at macro level.
The Central Bank of Nigeria has committed to providing loan facilities to leather producers in the country. Until then, people like Shuaibu Abdullahi can only continue to hope to cash in on the opportunities that lie ahead. Tassim Akende, CGTN Jos, Nigeria.
From West Africa to East Africa, where Ethiopia's Prime Minister has laid the cornerstone for a $60 million road project. It's an 80-kilometre road. It's expected to be completed in the next 48 months. It aims to transform one of Ethiopia's coffee-producing areas by providing much better access to national transport networks. CGTN's Gurum Chala has the details.
This area found in western Ethiopia is rich with coffee and other products, but has long been forgotten. And it has been suffering from a lack of proper road infrastructure. That has made life in general and business in particular difficult to undertake. Now, all that will be a thing of the past, thanks to the commissioning of a 80 kilometers Jimma-Chida concrete asphalt road project. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said this new road project will bring people together.
Our plan is simply converting the paved road that served for the last 39 years into a concrete asphalt road. That will enable us to bring two brotherly people together.
This vital road project will cost $60 million, and its construction will be carried out by the China-based Tianju Civil Engineering Group. Ethiopian Prime Minister said the economic significance of the new road project will be immense.
Jimma is a rich area and Konta similarly is a rich locality. At the same time, the entire southwestern Ethiopia region is unbelievably rich. People there are too kind-hearted. But so far, we've been unable to tap into the resources and assets we have. This road will now change everything for the better.
Residents of Jimma and Chida area said the new road, when completed, will assist them to sell their coffee, fruits and other products easily. In addition, the road will also help bring motorists to the widely known Chabera Chochora Park.
This is really a short distance in terms of kilometers, but we have suffered throughout our life to access some of the basic services in major cities. This project has brought with itself great opportunities in all areas. We used to pay beyond tariff. Now that will be history. We see light at the end of the tunnel.
Ethiopia is currently undertaking the construction of several multi-billion-dollar infrastructure projects right across the country. Apart from the building of roads, railways and airports, the country is also busy completing several hydropower dams, including the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. All this is hoped to make the Eastern Africa country a hub for the light manufacturing industry. Group Chala CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
One last story for you in the segment. The Toyota Yaris has been named as 2021's Car of the Year. The fourth generation petrol-electric hybrid, bit of a challenge from 6 other cars at an event in Geneva on Monday. The announcement came on what should have been the eve of the Geneva International Motor Show. But, of course, due to this pandemic, the show's been cancelled for the second year in a row. The runner-up was the Fiat 500 Electric. The Cupra Formentor crossover came in third. First-generation Yaris was named Car of the Year as far back as the year 2000.
The Toyota Yaris is one of the 7 finalists for the Car of the Year 2021. I'm driving it on some typical Dutch B-roads. They're twisty, they're narrow, they're bumpy, and therefore perfect to test the suspension of this 4th generation Yaris. It's more fun to drive, better steering, and more responsive handling. The strength is its versatility. 3 body styles, different drivetrains, a lot of safety systems. So the total package is the reason why the Yaris is one of the 7 finalists.
All right, then we'll leave it there for the time being. Later on in Global Business, we'll be in Uganda. The country, of course, needs the world's longest heated crude pipeline to make use of the near 2 billion barrels of crude oil it has. But the large international banks that can fund this project are being told not to. Why? We'll explore that and plenty more at 1800 GMT. See you then. For now, back to Peninah.
Thank you, Rama. You're watching Africa Live. Still ahead after this short break. We explore the colorful initiation ceremonies of Kenya's Rendile tribe.
Join us in Global Business and see Africa through our eyes.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Panata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Welcome back. Among the Rendile community in Kenya, a person's role in society depends on their age set and gender. There are special events, some held more than a decade apart, during which the community conducts several rituals to initiate people into the different age sets. One of those rituals is circumcision, where boys and young men are initiated into becoming warriors. CGTN Susan Mwongeli attended this unique ceremony and filed the following report.
One of the most important rituals among the Rendile community, a ceremony to inaugurate a new age set of boys. The last time a similar event took place was 14 years ago.
When it comes to that time, from 10 years to 30 years, they can be grouped together as one generation. Then they undergo that circumcision.
Although the event was clashing with the school year calendar, some 9,000 boys living in various mobile clan-based villages were due to be circumcised this year. It's a unique and elaborate process that must take place against all odds, even in the middle of a pandemic.
During that process, before even circumcision, for 1 month or so, they are being trained how to stay in an adult way. Because even if you are 30 years and you are circumcised, they call you, you are still a child. Like the way we are saying, if somebody is under 18, then you are still a child.
One characteristic of initiation in the Rendile culture is the infliction of pain. The boys are expected to endure it without complaining in a display of masculinity.
The whole point of this initiation is to harden the boys, to make them warriors. Once circumcised, the boy gets respect from the whole community. It's like a training ground for the military.
Before the main initiation event, the boys have to fetch wood, which will be placed at their doorstep to symbolize their readiness to take part in the ritual. Although this is a community with a highly patriarchal culture, I am privileged to be allowed to accompany the boys, albeit from a distance. I noticed Joseph Burcher, a 15-year-old initiate. Unlike his peers, he appears eager to take part in what awaits him. We have a chat as he heads into the wild. I ask him if he is scared of the process, to which he says he does not have any worries at all, as he understands that all boys must be circumcised according to their culture, which has been passed on to them throughout generations. There has been a drive across Kenya to encourage people to opt for clinical circumcision, but members of this community have been slow to take that up. They insist that circumcision under anesthesia cannot equal the traditional one. After each boy has collected enough wood, they return to their manyatas. At slightly past 2 o'clock, a call to assemble. One by one, each set of boys walks to a special sanctuary to receive blessings from their elders. Here, emotions run high.
Now, another stage in the initiation process is where these boys undertake a long trek to go and draw what they call sacred water. Now, it's quite symbolic because as they're doing this, they're doing it as a group, and at the same time, they're encouraging each other, especially for the very young ones who might be terrified of what awaits them.
Each boy has a special gourd containing milk which they will mix with the water from the well. It is to be used right before circumcision in a cleansing ceremony. Back at the village, a series of rituals begin. The boys must shave their hair in readiness of the new status that awaits them. They will also need to go out to fetch all the livestock. For the Rendile, who are a pastoralist community, livestock is an integral part of their lives. And an event as important as circumcision cannot take place with the livestock away. It's at this point that one by one, the boys undergo the cut in a process that takes a minute or two. For the next 10 days, a minimum of 80 boys will be circumcised from each boma per day.
Not everybody just pick his knife and circumcise boys. There are specific clan within the tribe who are being blessed to do that work. So that as far as they are blessed, they know the work because they inherit from their forefathers, the same clan.
Joseph is now a Moran. He will stay at this manyata under the care of his mother until he recovers fully, which should take a whole month.
I am really proud of myself. I have not just been circumcised, I have been given property too. Now I will defend all the Rendile across the world. I am responsible for this whole community.
While some of these rituals have been criticized for being outdated and at times even harmful, this community says it's not ready to abandon its traditions. For them, this ceremony contributes to their identity as a people and gives them a more respected social standing. Susan Mungeli for CGTN in Marsabit County, Kenya.
And coming up in sports, Tokyo Olympics Organizing Committee to increase women representation on its board.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks,